Previously on Aoi Shiro. I gradually realized what had happened. At the only stepping stones, I had collapsed while talking to Mikiwa. I wondered if Mikiwa had carried me all the way back here.
なるほど。わしの記憶もまんざらではない。その昔、幼いさんは来なかったが、あなたはここに来たことがあった。
Yes. Natsune-san and I visited Shoshinji, saw the Tokusaki no Tsubaki, and went to the everlasting island where they bloom.
8年前に浦島で何があったか、それを教えてほしいわけよ。特に、成海かやの身に何があったのかを。私はこの場合、話を振ってきた長から話すのが筋ってものよね。
私は8年前のことは覚えて。
違うわね。長は何かを知ってるはずよ。思い出すのを拒んでるだけ。
The vermilion pole that Mikiwa wielded returned the Moryu to dust, one by one. It wasn't like the movements used in Kendo, and that's not even considering the rules of battle in Kendo. And who? Natsune-san was alive? If she were really alive, I don't know what was stolen, but my thinking sped up and went around in meaningless circles as my feelings spilled out.
なんで？
そんな事情は知らないわよ。必要だったからわざわざ南の果てまで来たんでしょ。
The sensation against my skin was something thicker than sweat and left a sticky trail.
翔ちゃん、守れなくてごめんね。
And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken. Welcome back to my Let's Play of Aoi Shiro. I'm hoping that we will run into Kaya at some point and get 100% definite confirmation that I am definitely on her route, or something, or at least something that will serve as a good close second to that to confirm as much. Otherwise, I just don't really have any plan here other than just continuing what I was doing last time and just make random decisions along the way that I hope will put me closer to Kaya's route and hope for the best. So let's just get right to it. I woke up at the same time as usual. My nerves hadn't been so strained that I couldn't sleep, but I felt that my sleep had been lighter than normal. I sucked in a large breath, filling my lungs with the morning air, and then exhaled, trying to clear my hazy head. It didn't totally ease my mind, but it also wasn't as bad as feeling dragged down by mud. I wonder how many sheep she's counted. Nami was breathing in her sleep in the next futon. Her face was calm as if nothing had happened at all. Anyways, it was a good thing that Nami didn't wander around outside by herself and meet those Moryu monsters. Most of the other team members also didn't seem to go out and walk around at night. Now that I think about it, we were staying in a temple, and I heard that a long-haired ghost girl had appeared. It was a little different than being beset by problems from within and without, but as the captain, what should be my response? As I was pondering things, it seemed quite some time had passed.
おはよう。
From the next room, separated only by a sliding door, I heard the sound of cell phone alarms starting to ring, waking everyone.
おはようございます。
Good morning.
おはよう。で、綾代、今日
Wait a
も
minute. Okay. Guess we can't skip this. Her skin was pale and under the light of morning. She had little vitality.
今日のは単なる寝不足かもしれませんけど、昨べは調子に乗りすぎました。ザワッチは一足先に早寝して正解。そんなに？あの時は本当に調子は悪くなかったんですけど。じゃあやっぱり寝てる間に？
Or perhaps she hadn't noticed that she was so tired when we were all having fun. When I asked Aoi Shiro whether or not anything appeared, she shook her head as if trying to use her hair to hide her cheeks.
今日は途中で目が覚めませんでしたから。
出なかったかもしれない。
そうかもしれません。
Anyways, about the long-haired ghost girl, there was no other evidence besides Aoi Shiro's testimony. So for something that's normally not seen, might it not exist at all?
いや、私は何か出たと思いますよ。その根拠は？あったんですけど、ありませんでした。何よそれ。
I don't really understand, but anyways, it seems like quite a lot had happened.
やれやれですよね。とりあえず綾代は今日も休みの手伝いね。
はい。
She stopped adjusting her pants and in a rare move clenched her fist.
私、今日は早寝することを誓います。
あ、うん。だといいね。
I returned from running around the same time that Migiwa returned to Shoshinji. We started walking up the stairs side by side. I thought that Aoi Shiro's poor condition and the long-haired girl might be related to Migiwa's situation, so I decided to ask her.
もしかして昨日のあれが昇進寺の中に。
Those things that Migiwa defeated last night. They resembled a human. That short-statured thing was definitely not one. Migiwa had called that kappa yokai a moryu. In legends, classics, and other such works, Oni and yokai would attack and eat people. The monk normally lived by himself, and there was nothing to steal in a poor temple, so the security here was the worst. It seems anyone, even a beginner, would be able to easily enter the interior of this building. Humans could enter, but to think that those things could also enter was a frightening thought. They were only about the size of a child, but their hands were large like a baseball glove, with sharp nails on the end. Their head was big for their body, and within the unnaturally large mouth were sharp fangs. That mouth could probably swallow a large object like a watermelon whole. As well as a human head, of course.
ああ、ないない。それはないから安心して。根拠は？検視官は遺体の傷から殺害に及んだ凶器はおろか犯人像まで割り出すわけよ。やめてよ、演技でもない。ああ、さすがに姫さんに失礼だったかな。
Rather than a completely unrelated event, if we were careless, it might truly occur, and even as a joke, it was in bad taste.
で、ざっと見たところ、姫さんに外傷あった？ないように見えたわね。
If something like that had happened, Aoi Shiro and the others around her would have for sure made a larger fuss.
ゆうべのあれは人の性器だけを吸うようなお上品なものじゃないし、そんな器用な真似もできないから。もしもあれが中に入って誰かをその場でむさぼり食ったら布団の中は血だらけね。大丈夫なの？何が？このお寺の安全。さて、その辺は何とも保証しかねるわね。
It wasn't guaranteed that they would only appear at the Oni stepping stones, and not at other places. Miwa seemed willing to help out if Moryu appeared near someone, but she was only one person. It seemed beyond Migiwa's expectations that we would show up for summer training here.
とりあえず夜に出歩くのはやめておいた方がいいんじゃない？
Migiwa was saying that to hurry up and leave would be the best thing, but the second best thing would be to stay inside. We walked past the temple gate into the courtyard. I did some cool-down exercises as I waited for the others to come. As Migiwa entered the building, she said some final parting words.
それから剣気のことだけど、夕べの塩ではまだ来なかったわよ。
今朝は綾代さんの体調が悪いみたいだし、昨日は昨日で相沢さんどころか幼いさんまで倒れてるし。 弱り目にたたり目ってわけじゃないけど、調子悪い時に天候不順まで重なったら大変よね。時間をかけてきてるわけだし、もったいないとは思うんだけど、先生、今回は用心をとって合宿は切り上げた方がいいと思うんだけど。
I didn't even consider that, actually. That several people, including myself here, have been collapsing. And since that's at least one additional person compared to all the other routes, that'd probably give Aoi even more incentive to cut the trip short. So I guess it's possible that maybe I might get stuck on a return trip with no way to prevent it.
幼いさんはどう思う？
Or maybe not. Let's see. Personally, I was concerned about Natsune-san and didn't want to leave until that was resolved. However, but what if the possibility that Mikiwa had frightened me with occurred, and one of those things from last night injured someone? Also, Aoi Shiro's situation was a different matter, and even if she didn't take walks at night, that thing would come after her.
私も仕方ないと思います。安全には変えられませんし。
そうよね。
Aoi Sensei looked a little relieved. I might have screwed myself.
じゃあ、先生は明日の電車で席が取れるかどうか確認するわ。
取れたら明日帰るということですか？
そうなるわね。荷物をまとめたり掃除をしたり、立つ準備をしておいた方がいいかもしれないわ。
Like how a bird does not muddy the water when it takes off, we should clean up the place before we leave. Reservations still lingered in my heart, though. They would surely also clear up with the passage of time.
心残りがないように遊び倒さないと。
Morning practice was also canceled today, and it was free time all day long. As always, after a morning meal, we took a long break in the grand hall.
今夜は肝試しとかやって盛り上がりましょう。お寺にお墓で合宿ときたら肝試しするしかないでしょう。あなた、ホラー映画だと真っ先に死ぬタイプ。
Don't remind me.
探偵ですか？死ぬタイプみたいな疑問系とか死ぬタイプかもみたいな推論じゃなくて探偵ですか？
Because you're the most impulsive of the group, therefore the least likely to think your actions through before charging headfirst into danger. That's why.
大丈夫。和尚さんから木刀を借りていけば万が一でも大丈夫。
Also, horror movies have worlds that are often hilariously cruel, and so they will go after the most optimistic people in the group in order to suck out the happiness and joy that was in it when people like you were around. Just to help boost that dreadful little atmosphere a little bit. So, you know, if you're not a monster clown in a horror movie, you are going to die. From what I saw of the Moryu, my wishful thinking was that we'd be okay as long as we stayed away from the ocean, but I guess I really was still worried. Mikiwa and I exchanged glances and decided to somehow make her give up on the test of courage before nightfall.
それから昼の予定ですが、最終日かもしれませんから海に行くべきだと思うのです。私、水着とか持ってないんだけど。それなら今すぐ速攻で買いに行きましょう。海水浴は昼からでも十分だということで。
So, shopping trip?
他にも花火買ってきたりとか。
Okay, we can go shop. I'm just thinking, if I pass, then would that increase my chances of running into Kaya? Then again, I also ran into Roryu while I was out shopping as well, so I think it is possible for me to run into Kaya while I'm out shopping too. But she would have incentive to try to stay hidden, since she has the sword with her and she knows that she's being pursued. But Onis need to eat, don't they? Fuck it.
そうね。
The ocean was dangerous at night, but there was no need to be so nervous about playing by the beach in the afternoon. The fireworks would be set off by the beach, but we would be in a group and have fire, so they would probably hold off, I think. Considering normal animal behavior, strange creatures are more likely to be seen at night, and more likely to attack individuals. And also, I'd have Miguel accompany us except for the times during the low tide, when she had to watch the stepping stones. I didn't like relying on outside help, but it seemed we had no other choice. I could concede this much since I was going to have her stop the test of courage. This might help lighten the mood, and we should take the time to enjoy things which were fun. That's why I used a particularly bright voice.
いいんじゃない？イエーイ！ザワッチ、今日は遊ぶぜ！
So, in order for us to play until we dropped in the remaining time in the afternoon, I went shopping with everyone. Our last meal would be tomorrow morning, but our last dinner was today, so we bought appropriate food for camping at the beach. We also bought fireworks that everyone could use to have fun after the meal. We're just zooming right through all this shit. I'd forced myself to wear it today, but after I returned home to my normal life, I think I'd be embarrassed about this. It seems I was made to buy quite an incredible swimsuit. We just zoomed right through that so quickly, so I can't help but wonder, did I just make a choice that would just put me on the wrong track towards getting Kaya's good end? Well, I mean, I don't know what ending exactly I'm going to end up getting first time around anyway, but I mean, that just seems so quick that to where it almost feels obvious that that's the sort of choice that you'd make if you wanted to get towards a either normal end or a bad end, you know? Play setting's not yet complete. Yasumi entered the dining room after washing her hands and announced the menu for lunch.
お昼はおかゆです。
Oh boy! Momoko's favorite! Maybe the meal was light because she considered our last dinner here would have a lot, and we were going swimming right after.
茶がゆですから香りもいいし、さっぱりしてて美味しいですよ。
うわ、おかずは米と漬物以外のお腹にたまる食料は？
もうそう言うと思って鶏そぼろとか卵そぼろとかトッピングもいろいろ用意してあるよ。
Well, lucky you. Of course, Yasumi also didn't forget those who would want a filling lunch. Each person could decide how many toppings she wanted.
あとはトマトが半分と、そっちは枝豆のミゾレスのものです。
大根おろしは昨日の残りか。
それにお酢とお醤油で枝豆に合うんですよ。
お天道様の高いうちからこうごぎゅっといただきたくなりますな。
Stroking his white beard that had something like bubbles in it. Why do you have bubbles in your beard, good sir? The Hanyu person gave his first impression of the edamame.
鈴木さんはこの後に予定が？
残念ながら時期が時期ですからな。檀家回りをしてこねばなりません。いくらわしでもさすがにの。
Though not a proper monk, he was still a monk. He said regretfully as if he had a lingering affection for last night's fun. Compared to that, Aoi Sensei was...
先生は飲んじゃってもいいかしら？
I don't mind her drinking, but it's dangerous to go swimming after imbibing alcohol, so both of them should give up on the idea. There will always be plenty of time for drink later, Teach. Passing Soshinji's gate and going down the stairs, there was only one road that soon led to the ocean. Whether it's because there weren't any sea bathing guests, or because they didn't come, there weren't houses nearby or facilities. We changed in our rooms, and then put on an overgarment or not. Again, this translation. And head down the side stairs towards our target, the beach. But still, it must be due to the time and situation because I felt different about the place. Running in the morning wearing our dogi, I didn't have any weird feelings, but once I put on the swimsuit, it felt surreal to have scantily clad young girls walking out of a temple, and I felt we received some sort of divine punishment. In the past, women were forbidden from entering the temple gates because they were thought to ignite impure thoughts. And I wasn't even wearing a demure one piece, but a risque bikini. I forgot to check the skip. I'm dumbass. I still had everyone do warm-up exercises. After that, everyone could do as they pleased. Although it was free time, there was just one restriction. Since there was no lifeguard to protect those swimming, you had to have someone else with you when playing in the ocean. So the friendly members swam in the ocean, played in the sand, hit a beach volleyball around, and gathered seashells. I absentmindedly stayed by the beach under the shining summer sun and stared at the wavering ocean.
明日の夕方にはいつもの見慣れた学校か。
We weren't going to disband at the first station, but we're going to travel all the way to school before disbanding. I wouldn't mind disbanding at the station, but since we had some emergency plan changes, it was fine to do it that way. It also seems Aoi Shiro was going to be picked up from school by a private car. Someone is coming to greet her. Is it? When I was small, both my parents were busy, so it was Akiko-san and Natsuni-san who... I looked at Urashima, which was separated from here by the ocean.
昨日何かをつかみかけたけど。
It was something from several days 8 years ago that had disappeared from my memory. There were many things I didn't remember from the past year. Even so, it should be fine to forget about those few days. Also, the purpose of this trip was not for me to do some vague self-introspection, but to participate in a team training camp.
でも結局、私は何も思い出していない。
The pain from that time caused me to remember something. If that were a thread connecting to the past, I wondered if I would remember other things if I got past that pain. But if I collapsed again, it would cause trouble for everyone else.
一人じゃなければいいわけよね。
In other words, I just needed someone who would remain calm if I collapsed. Migawa? Aoi Shiro, Yasumi, and Nami, who was brought along by Yasumi, who were playing near the water, with the waves tickling their bare feet.
こうして波打ち際に立って目をつぶると、なんだか沖に連れて行かれるみたいな感じがします。本当に連れて行かれるみたいです。
それ、ちょっと怖い感覚ですよね。
When the tide recedes, the only stepping stones will appear. Miyu will probably be watching over them and waiting for Natsuni-san. 2 stepping stones, and it was an illusion. Well, we are trying to run into Kaya, so 2 the stones. If Miyu were here, Miyu would probably have tried to stop me from remembering. Instead, she would have hoped that I would remember. And also, if I collapsed, I could ask her to call to someone or help out. Deep down in my heart, I made a decision.
翔子さん、何がよしなんですか？
あやしろ。
The sand crunched beneath her feet as she walked across it, and she greeted me with an easygoing smile.
一人で一息つきました？
まあね。
She seemed to notice that I had probably been thinking about something, and didn't call out before she approached.
そろそろスイカ割りをしようって桃子ちゃんたちが探してますよ。
私はいいわ。これから少し行く場所あるし。
右輪さんのところですか？
Perceptive.
ほら、顔に書いてありますよ。後出しですけど。翔子さんは隠し事とか苦手ですよね。
そういうつもりはないんだけど。
そんな不愛想な顔をしても無駄なんですから。もっと普段からにこやかにしてればいいのに。
嫌よ、恥ずかしい。
まあ、翔子さんの性格上仕方ないですよね。ゆうべ少し衝突しましたからね。あんな風に喧嘩別れになるのは気分的に良くないですし。
実は
Migo and I had reached some common ground last night and worked out a compromise.
明日にはお別れですものね。仲直りして右輪さんも連れてきたらいいですよ。魚は釣れないと食べられませんけど、スイカは確実に食べられますから。
時間かかるかもしれないから待たないで先にやっちゃって。
It's fine that Aoi Shiro had a misconception. I didn't tell her my real plans, so it would hurt my conscience to make them wait for me.
本当はこのまま翔子さんを連れて行っちゃいたいんですけど。
なるべくそっちに行けるように努力はしてみるつもりだけど。
I turned my blushing face towards the sun. I'll blame the heat and the redness all in the sunlight. I nodded and headed to where Migiwa likely was, and where the only stepping stones were peeking out from beneath the waves. You here, Kaya? Well, probably not. I was careful not to let my bare skin scrape against the rocks as I went to the stepping stones where Migiwa pretended to fish.
暇そうね。
ま、昼は一応の用心で張り付いてるようなもんだから。鬼が動くのは夜だって昔からの相場で決まってるのよね。
夏姉さんは鬼じゃない。
その証拠でも思い出した？
The calm and tranquil atmosphere was split in an instant, as Migiwa asked for proof that Natsuni-san wasn't an oni.
公式的な記録では、成海かやは死んだ人、奇跡に入った人なのよ。実は生きていたなんていうのはなし。それなら、なんで長のところに連絡一つよこさないわけ？だいたい剣気が盗んだのって特別な目的でも持ってない限り盗もうなんて思わないものよ。
夏姉さんは剣気は一体何を盗んだの？
まんざら無関係じゃないんだし、少しぐらいなら教えてあげても構わないかな。あんたの夏姉さん、剣気がステン島から奪っていったのは800年来封印され続けてきた一振りの剣よ。
剣？
ステンの者が鬼切り部となる以前から代々守り続けてきた。八千代の昔に形を成した神さえ葬る神代の呪物。それが剣。
That was the article that Migiwa wanted to retrieve.
夏姉さんはそんなものを手に入れて何をしようとしてるわけ？
そんなの私が知るはずないでしょ。
その剣を使ってできることとか。
そういう長にこそ心当たりはないわけ？
Natsuni-san was in my dream about the sword. Let's inquire about the sword. Natsuni-san obtained the sword for some special purpose. Then I felt I had to learn more about it. I decided to turn my gaze toward that direction first.
長
長は一応関係者だけど、どっちかって言えば被告の身内だからな。
She let out a sigh as if that were a problem.
ステン島が剣を守ってきたことは非中の非として守られてきたのよ。とは言っても人の口に戸は立てられぬわけで、長い歴史を誇る分ステン島から離れていった人もいるわけよ。そういう人がここだけの話って話したのが漏れ広がったのかもしれない。
She herself was choosing to talk, but the source of the information had traveled far, so there's less reason to keep it secret. So, like the just between us talk now, if Natsuni-sen had learned of the sword, then the info wasn't hidden anymore. However,
剣は竜宮に住む竜王の宝剣なんだけどさ、琉球が竜宮だって話聞いたことある？
Miwa had paused a bit as her gaze turned from me to the ocean, where her fishing line was located. She then said,
その昔大きな水地を切ったら竜の玉と球の玉を手に入れた。だから琉球。竜の玉と球の玉？一部の人はその2つを塩蜜玉と塩降る玉の2玉に当てはめたりしてるわね。水を呼ぶ玉と水をはけさせる玉だっけ？そう、山幸彦こと法理の命が和田摘の宮で手に入れた兄弟喧嘩の必勝アイテム。
So it was the story of the precious jewels I had heard about from Miwa on the first night I came to Unasaka.
ちなみに海幸彦は熊曽の祖だから舞台となった場所からすると琉球が竜宮湖と和田摘の宮の可能性はあると。
In other words, the sacred sword of the Dragon Palace was also the sacred sword of Ryukyu.
ちなみにうちの方にはマータンコって伝説もあってね。その伝説では大蛇を切って剣を手に入れてたりするのよ。
A large Mizuchi serpent was killed, and the Ryu and Kyu jewels were obtained. A large snake was killed and a sword was obtained. If that were the case, then was the true identity of the sword the Ryu and Kyu jewels?
それって。さて、どうかしらね。
The sudden sound of footsteps caused Miwa and me to stand up. Miwa reached her hand out to the crimson pole lying next to her. Whether she relaxed her guard during the day, or because she was focused on our conversation, the person allowed to get close was Momoko.
あ、いたいた、やっぱりこっちにいましたか。桃子。
The footsteps of the potentially dangerous person belonged to Momoko, proud of her athletic ability, who had left the crowd.
お、姫先輩が言ったようになんだか仲直りしてますね。仲良きことは美しきかな。
After seeing that the atmosphere between Miko and me wasn't hostile, she gave a dazzling smile and turned towards the beach.
スイカ割りを始めますんで、さっさとこっちに来てくださいな。ミギーさんも一緒にどうですか？
By the time Momoko turned to face us again, Miwa had exchanged the crimson pole she was holding for an ordinary fishing pole. Miwa lightly raised the fishing pole and showed it to Momoko.
いや、私はしばらく手を離せないからいいや。スイカはちょっと惜しいけど。では、後で差し入れ持ってきます。ありがたいけど、あんまり岩場をうろうろするのはよした方がいいわよ。特に水着で肌出してるとどこ引っ掛けて切るかわからないし。
Your watermelon's not good enough for her, Momoko.
あら、雨？
Indeed. I've been thinking that the sky had suddenly turned cloudy as the rain started falling down. The reason we were leaving Osaka tomorrow was because of the unseasonable weather. I wondered if it was starting now. The individual raindrops connected together like a string of Buddhist prayer beads and finally became a single line.
強くなってきましたね。早く戻りましょう。
どうせ水着なんだから濡れても問題ないと思うんだけど。
気分の問題？
Momoko left that to remark as she gathered hers and Yasumi's belongings and started running for the temple gates.
だからって走ることはないと思うんだけど。
すぐに止む雨ならいいんですけど、ずっと降ったらどうしよう。
バーベキューとか花火とか？
花火はまだいいんですけど、バーベキュー用の材料を普通に焼くのって大変そうですし。
Yasumi started to think of other ways to prepare the ingredients for the barbecue.
よっ、私もエネルギー補給させてもらうわよ。
Well, you're still here. That's different.
右は夏姉さんは？昼の見張りは念のためって言ったでしょ。やっぱり来るなら夜なんじゃない？腹が減ってはなんとやらだし、その前にがっつり飲み食いしておかないとね。
ですよね。やっぱり肉ですよね。
I had no idea what Momoko, who had interjected, was talking about as she wandered over to the grill. Migo and I exchanged glances, giving each other a wry smile as we followed after Momoko.
ザワッチ、肉まだ。もうちょっと待って。
やすみ、肉まだ？
もうちょっと待って。ナミちゃん、ちゃんと食べてますか
Nami nodded her head as she chewed on the meat. Momoko went up and gave her a strong pat on the back.
ナミ、ちゃんと食べないとこれから生きていけないぞ。
Nami looked up at Momoko with teary, reproachful eyes. I placed my hand on Nami's head.
ほんと、これからどうなるのか心配ね。
When we go back home tomorrow, only Nami and the monk will remain at Shoshinji. As a monk, he would be busy with his affairs. It wouldn't be like now, where someone was constantly keeping an eye on Nami.
こっそり連れて行ってしまいましょうか。こっそりって。大丈夫。夏休みの間ならうちの寮にかくまえるでしょ。
She's not a pet, Momoko.
まあ、ルームメイトのザワッチは共犯者になりますし、食事番の意味を取るザワッチならナミーの食事作ってる姿を目撃されても怪しまれません。
I think you'll need better cover than that, honestly. People say that summer nights by the ocean are all about fireworks. After stuffing ourselves until we couldn't eat anymore, everyone went to set off fireworks. Many different types of fireworks were prepared, from incense stick type ones you hold in your hand to ones fired into the air. Momoko wasn't the only one who was in a good mood. Everyone was having fun. This was probably Nami's first time seeing fireworks, and she seemed to be very interested in the different colors of flame.
ナミちゃん、こっちに来て。
Yasumi pulled her back into a safe zone. Though we were going to end the trip early, we still had a memorable training camp, I think. I just thought of something. I'm almost positive we're gonna run into Kaya at some point in the near future, but I can't help but wonder, we're getting close to a time where she would cross over the stepping stones and go over to Urashima. With Miyu here, is it possible that she'll just be too distracted to go back to the stepping stones, and then Syouko will just think of a reason to go there by herself and then run into Kaya, without Migiwa there to back her up in any way? Because if that happens, then, well, Kai would pretty much have to fully acknowledge Shyoko's presence there, and well, maybe then, with no one else to distract her, she can get a good look at Syouko and then recognize her maybe. As I was watching the fireworks from the side and thinking about that, Migiwa drew near me.
あ、そうだ、オサ。帰ることに決めたなら、今夜は出歩くのをやめておいた方がいいわよ。何かあるわけ？私は今日か明日の夜が山だと思ってる。
Perhaps tonight, Natsune-san would.
いくら鬼でも海のものでもない限り、あの踏み石を嵐の中わざわざ渡りたくないだろうし。嵐の直撃を避けてあんたたちが帰るみたいに、そろそろ来るんじゃないかと思って。
Migiwa lifted one end of her mouth into an audacious smile.
別の意味で今夜は荒れるわよ。
Natsune-san was. Though the storm hadn't come yet, my heart was already trembling. This was a dream. I wonder how many times it's been already. I knew that I was watching a dream.
翔ちゃん、見て。この花だけ赤いんだ。そう、この花だけが特別なの。この花は夏も秋も冬もずっと枯れないんだって。すごいね、なっちゃん。極楽の花だ。あ、そっか。あきこさんが言ってた南の島ってもうすぐ近くにあるのかな。そうね。あきこさんがそこにいるかどうかはわからないけど、向こうに見える島。
Separated by only 5 kilometers or so of ocean was Urashima.
そこにはこの花がたくさん咲いているそうよ。行ってみようよ。でもお祭りがある間は船が出てないから。お祭り？行きたい行きたい。泳いで行けないの？私クラスで一番泳ぐの得意だよ。泳ぐのは危ないけど。
I woke up.
夏姉さん、なっちゃん。
When you die, you'll head over to the southern island. It was something on the same level as believing in Santa Claus. At that time, I had been an innocent little kid. Continue dream? So I can, well, so what? I could actually just go right back to sleep and resume that dream? Is that actually possible? So we're about halfway, roughly halfway down the flowchart, as far as this route is concerned, and still no sign of Kaya. I feel like I should know what Tokusaki is, but I don't. I for some reason I'm drawing a blank. Now I remember, it's the damn tree, the Tokusaki no Tsubaki. I have a feeling though if I were to go there I'd run into Kahaku. 'Cause, well, she's right now hanging around in the forest. So these are two likely options I think I want to choose, either the stones or the Tokusaki. Let's go to stones, why not?
夏姉さん、本当に来るのかしら。
Miura said she was suspicious about tonight and tomorrow night. For me, who was going home tomorrow, it would be my last night here.
最後にもう一度もしかしたら
Though Miyu had said not to come, I got out of my futon and headed for the stepping stones. Since the Moryu might appear at any time, I changed into my normal clothes and took Kumoichi as I headed to the stepping stones. As expected, Miura was at the stepping stones and had a fishing line in the sea.
右は夏姉さんはまだ
I wasn't happy about the state of affairs, but I wanted to hear her answer about the situation.
ちょっとオサあんた何しに来たわけ
I already knew what Miura's answer would be. I figured she wouldn't keep silent, but would give an eloquent spiel. Though I was prepared for a half-hearted response, Miura might give me a fierce look and keep hounding me until I turned back. However, I wasn't afraid of something like that. I just also thought of something else. Every time Kaya shows up here, she always appears injured. Like she had recently fought somebody. I wonder. That fight probably had to have occurred somewhere here on this island. So if I ended up choosing Tokusaki no Tsubaki, could I have possibly witnessed that fight? Maybe that was the right option I should have chosen. Even if she decided to use force to make me turn back, I would remain stubborn, and a decision my heart wouldn't change.
まったくも
Well, too late now. Might as well see where this takes me. My heart was firmly made up, so even a lever could not budge it, causing Miura to give a lament and run her hand through her hair. And like that, we didn't say much to each other as we both waited for our target to come. We continued waiting for that person to come. And here she is. Though Miura had said Natsune-sen was possessed by the Oni King, it wasn't really in her inside. Oh crap, I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. If there was someone else on the inside, I wondered if her sword skills and the way she walked would be different. If the sword skills and the way she walked were the same, then perhaps she only looked like she had changed into something else, but the truth was nothing about her had changed. Then was she not the Oni King but Natsune-san herself?
おやおや何があったか知らないけどなんだか満身創痍じゃない
At Miura's voice, the bubble burst.
日頃の行いがいいと漁夫の利とかって転がり込んでくるものね
I wonder who exactly had done that to Natsune-san, as her entire body was covered in countless sword cuts of varying sizes. But more than the wounds, there was one thing about her that was different from the Natsune-san that I knew. She wasn't holding a familiar bamboo or wooden sword. It wasn't a Japanese blade either, like what had cut down Miura before.
手にしたあれは剣
The shape, weight, and balance were different from a Japanese blade. That bloodthirsty, double-edged sword would be hard to wield.
剣気かや鳴海かや鬼切りべ四天刀が鬼切り火や右輪が奪われた剣を取り戻しに来たぞ
Miura blocked the way to the stepping stones. Natsune-san cocked her eyebrows slightly and with a harsh look said,
そこをどいて通しなさいそれができない相談なのよね私にだって意地がある
The reason Miura waited here twice a day at noon and night was for this moment. The pride of an Oikiri would probably not allow her to step down when faced with an opponent she had suffered defeat to.
ところであんた 警察官だったわけよね。
元だ。すでに死んだことになっている。
ちょっとシャレにならないっていうか、冗談にしても立ち悪すぎよね。日本の官憲制度に物申したいって感じ。
Eloquent Kayan Migiwa started cleverly speaking. If she lost in terms of pure power, then she was willing to crack jokes to agitate the opponent.
で、被害届はまだだから、今なら示談で済ませてあげるけど。
そこを通してもらおうか。
But the wholeheartedly stubborn Natsunisen completely disregarded that suggestion. She held up the sword to the moonlight, and as if talking to herself, ground out these words.
私はすでに人ではない。人であった私は死んだのだ。
なるみかや。
違う。私はすでにそうではない。今しがたまで死者ではあっても鬼ではあってもその名で呼ばれる資格を持っていた。けれどたった今なった。たった今切った肉を切る手応えを私は知った。骨を断つ手応えを私は知った。人を切るのは初めてだったけれど私は先ほど確信した。私はそうだと確信できた。震えなかった。手も足も心もなすべきことをなすためならば何の考えもなく人を切れると知った。黄泉より帰ったこの体のみならず魂までも。けれどそれでも構わない。人の身では神を切るには不足。私はあの子を救うため望んで鬼となったのだ。
元気かや。
そうだ。
Shiver. Because of her unexpectedly cold words, I couldn't even say anything. Though she was awkward, she had always been kind. That voice wasn't like Natsunise, and I couldn't call out to her.
ステン島のキヤン右は押してまいる。前の雪辱はここで果たす。
Like a nimble mountain cat, Mikiwa leaped from rock to rock as she headed towards Natsu-Nisan. The vermilion pole swung around in a downward path. She wasn't in Natsu-Nisan's range yet. Though Natsu-Nisan had the nickname Rook and used a quick, one-handed strike, Mikiwa wasn't in the range of a casual swing. However, after Natsu-Nisan swung the sword once, the air in the vicinity became heavy. That weight wrapped around Mikiwa's limbs and robbed them of their motion. Though Mikiwa had been that nimble, her movements became jerky, and she crumbled apart like a broken gear. My lungs burned from the inside. The miasma that spread out felt as if it would corrode all the nerves and muscles in my body.
剣、ここまで力を。
Mikiwa staggered, her knees bent, and she looked like she was going to fall down. Even before she was in the range of the sword, Mikiwa looked like she had been hit by something and was going to collapse.
ダメだ、体がバランス。
And then Mikiwa fell into the ocean.
右は
まだ間に合うかもしれない。早く助けてあげなさい。
Natsu-Nisan said that to me as she crossed over the rocks where Mikiwa had just been. She probably didn't know it was me since she talked to me like a stranger and not a relative. Using the power of an Oni which surpassed that of human, Natsu-Nisan leapt over the stepping stones without looking back. And I guess we just got straight to an ending with this. Oh. Seal on Kohaku's route has been unlocked. Well, hey, look at that. It wasn't a waistcoat choosing this option after all. We're going to try going to the Tokusaki no Tsubaki this time, because I'm pretty sure just continuing the dream will just bear no fruit whatsoever. So let's do it.
私、夏姉さんとあの木を見たんだ。
Plus, I really want to see if we can catch this fight that she gets into. And then I suddenly
あ
realized
の木
the Tokusaki no Tsubaki with red flower blossoms that never withered.
あの木って私はまだ見ていないはずよ。
We've talked about it countless times since coming to Shoshinji, but I just realized I hadn't seen the real thing yet. I may have seen a Tsubaki spirit, but at that time, I didn't see the actual tree in the end.
行こう。今から見に行こう。
Though I had been cautioned against it, as long as I didn't approach the stepping stones and went to the South Forest instead.
昨日みたいなこともあるし、念のため。
One can never be too prepared. I didn't know if it was especially effective against monsters or not, but the pole Migiwa had used didn't look particularly special. From what I saw yesterday, even I should be able to do something if only 2 or 3 of them showed up.
行こう。
Relying on the hazy memory in my dream, I went through the South Forest. Using the moonlight peeking through the gaps in the leaves, I tried not to hurry, but I was still moving along at a quick pace. As far as I could remember, this was the furthest I'd been, but the scene I saw wasn't just deja vu. Soon. A little further ahead, the Tokusaki no Tsubaki should be there. It was the only tree in this forest with red flower blossoms. The Tokusaki no Tsubaki I should have seen years ago, and whose image had bubbled up from deep within and to appear in my dreams. The sharp sound of clashing steel reached my ears. Sounds like I was onto something regarding this fight. That sound seemed out of place at a location like this. To me, who was chasing after Natsune-san, that was unmistakably the sound of weapons clashing. Like how a bow was drawn back in order to allow the arrow to fly fiercely, I stopped my feet. Confirming the direction of sound, I started to dash towards that location. There were 2 human shadows, one in red and one in black, facing each other with drawn weapons. So she was fighting Kohaku? The clash of blades made sparks fly. Lit up by the flying sparks, the 2 of them faced each other inches apart, separated by their blades and glaring at each other.
なかなか早い。
On one side was a short shadow with white hair and a white complexion, dressed in a red kariginu. The first time I saw her, she had given me an impression of a Tsubaki spirit. Tonight, too, her unnaturally white skin seemed to glow. Even against a taller opponent, she wasn't pushed back, and her expression didn't suit her white complexion. Of course, there was also technique to consider, but sword fighting relied greatly on strength, so she wasn't just a normal girl. Her face was like that of a finely crafted doll. Though there were no scars, one blemish stood out. Against a bright red eye like a glossy pomegranate or ripe winter cherry, the left was closed, giving her an unbalanced look. If that left eye was lost to an arrow long ago, at this fated land, then she would almost be like... Or perhaps she was the incarnation of the Oni King, that Yasuhime-sama had sealed inside Tokusaki no Tsubaki. Regardless of who she was, or how she came to be inhuman, she was likely Deseki Ganki searching for the sword, like Mikiwa said. And there was no need to say who the other Black Shadow was. I didn't have to worry about putting together the pieces. The answer was clear. The one dressed in black who hadn't changed was the Kenkei that Mikiwa was chasing, and had retained the same appearance as that of my memories. It was Natchan, Natsuni-san. The swing of her sword burned into my eyes. But my eyes could only catch the afterglow because of the speed of her blows. It was a frightening speed beyond human limits. She really was a Kenkei, a sword demon. It was a fight far beyond normal people, a duel between Oni and Oni, and a longsword versus sword. I was struck by the terrible atmosphere generated by their fight. My body wouldn't move, and I could do nothing but watch.
剣の技は悪くない。まだそれほど長くは生きていないだろうに、なかなかと言っていい腕前だ。しかしだ剣気、貴様程度の鬼にその剣が使いこなせるものか。そいつは形通りの諸刃の剣だ。必ずやお主の身も滅ぼすぞ。さあ、それをわしに渡すがよい。お主、すでにそれに毒されておるのだろう。断る。目的を果たす前に渡せるものか。この身を鬼と化し、人であることを捨てた時にまともな終わりはないだろうとすでに覚悟している。その剣が呼ぶのは己の滅びだけではないぞ。何が望みだ、言ってみろ。剣などなくても叶うことならわしが合力してやってもいい。私の目的は
That sword was a cursed relic from the age of gods. Then, there should be things that only that sword can accomplish.
この浦島で煮えを捧げられる目方のわだつみ。
Look in her eyes indicated strong determination.
苦労狂うを切りに来た。
She declared her purpose in coming here.
そのためだけに剣を探し、そのためだけに剣を手に入れたのだ。
With a strong look in her eyes, Natsuni-san declared that she was here to kill a god. If I hadn't been affected beforehand by such things like Oni, gods, or Shikigami, I might have worried about her. I might even have laughed. However, And then the girl laughed in my place. 神を切るだと？たわけたことを。笑わせるな剣気。調子に乗るな剣気。お主ごときに神が切れるものか。切ってみせる。いや、無理だね。お主では無理だ。無理などではない。切れるはずだ。神さえ葬る神代の呪物。確かにお主の言う通り、剣は人の手に余る神器だ。だからこそ無理だと言っておる。お主は神を切る前に神を切ること自体を忘れる。悪いことは言わん。神を切ろうなどという馬鹿げた考えと剣を捨ててここから去れ。わだつみの都へ至る門を開こうなどと思うな。よしんば神の身元にたどり着けたとしても、お主はおそらく身動き一つ満足にできんだろう。言ったな。試してみるか。Provoked by those words, Natsuni-san held her sword. Not a sword, but a normal Japanese blade, in a high stance. 試してみろ。The fierce and frightening war cry made me cringe and reflexively close my eyes. At the next instant, I felt a mysterious pressure, which made my hair stand on end. Natsune-sen was nicknamed the Rook, which was a piece that could reach all the way across the board, just like her attack now. Her long, fast strike stretched out. By the time I lifted my eyelids, the opponent would probably be cut down. However, Natsune-sen didn't move forward a single step.
どうだ動けぬであろう
During the time it took to blink, exactly what had happened. Natsune-sen was still holding her sword in her high stance as her movement was frozen. The Sekiganki didn't even bother staying on guard, as she laughed and took one step closer to Natsune-sen, who couldn't move.
全身がすくみ上がり動けぬであろうわしが相手でそのざまだいわんや瑠璃球の竜神をや剣を持とうが何を持とうがそれを手にしたお主自身が動けぬようでは無用の長物に過ぎぬのだお主にはクロークルーの相手は無理だ言うな
Even then, Natsune-sen made her lips move and muttered those words. Her body started to quiver.
私は
Natsune-sen filled her frozen muscles with a greater power than the one binding them in order to advance.
私は神を切らなければいけない
She opened her eyes wide. They flashed with something looking like bitter tears of blood. She swung her sword and broke the binding spell.
クロークルーを切らねばならないほうかの主外もそうして虎を逆に居すくめたと聞くが参ったなどうやらお主の信念だけは孫うことなき本物のようだだがそれでも認めるわけにはいかんな
Squinting her right eye slightly, she only drew back her body. Excuse me, I can't even read. She only drew back her body near the tip of the blade and dodged Natsune-san's attack. The tip of Natsune-san's sword was left in a ready stance and pointed right at the opponent's throat. If Natsune-san took a half step forward, the sharp tip of the Japanese sword would probably rend the throat and cause death. And in truth, after a moment's hesitation, Natsune-san proceeded to do just that. However, the opponent was faster. She rushed forward and used her left hand to knock down the back of the sword with her left palm. With a sudden increase in speed, the sword couldn't stop. It didn't hit the front like it should, or even empty air, but the ground. So humiliating. And that was just the introduction. Natsune-san lifted her sword in order to quickly readjust her stance, but the girl was even faster. She lifted the foot that she had moved back when she dodged and slid it forward. She stepped on the back of Natsune-san's sword with the sole of her foot and drove it even further into the ground. No matter how small she was, a human didn't have the physical strength to lift up a sword with someone standing on top of it. At the same time, she swung her longsword at Natsune-san's exposed neck. Slam. Finally, the girl's foot stepped onto the ground as Natsune-san's sword tumbled onto the earth. Though that should have been an unstable position, the girl's movements were very composed.
即短とあやつは名付けたらしいが
She swung the longsword at Natsune-san's throat.
遠避遠海の足とて頭の上から降りかかる刃に飛び乗るなどという大道芸はなかなかうまくやらんよ
Natsune-san jumped back, increasing the distance between them. Her beloved sword lay fallen at the girl's feet. I want to jump in, because... Yeah. Without thinking, I rushed forward.
おっとなんだお主は
Sekiganke easily dodged Kumoichi as I swung and narrowed her open right eye a bit at my sudden intrusion. She glanced at me and...
ああ先日にもこの森であったな
The thumping in my heart increased. The Tsubaki spirit. No, the Sekiganki.
弱歩きは控えろと教えたはずだがな
Indicating that I would be spirited away by Oni and Eden, she said that as a fang peeked out of her mouth. Was I enchanted by the magic of an Oni? For a reason other than being faced with the tip of a sword, my heart sped up. My lungs heated up and contracted. My throat constricted. My cheeks stiffened up and trembled. It was hard to breathe. This sweet and nostalgic feeling was... I wanted to entrust myself entirely to this feeling as it climbed up my... Hello? You're wielding the sword in this image. Interesting. But however, this feeling didn't belong to me. A little before now, I'd experienced this. It was very similar to the feeling I got when in my dream, Natsune-san was reflected in my eyes. That's why I determined that the feeling just now didn't belong to me. To suppress those feelings, I gripped Kumoichi with both hands and yelled at the Oni, who had only one red right eye open.
私は夏姉さんを助ける
I stirred up my own feelings and pushed back the feelings that weren't mine.
お主は
At that instant, she looked away from me.
引け
She said that to me in a sharp voice. As if emulating that warning, a voice inside me rang out. Okay. You know what? I have a feeling that Kaya is attacking right now, so I have a feeling that if I stay, I'm gonna get hit by it, and I'm gonna get an immediate bad end right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that out of the way and just see what happens. I won't retreat. There's no way I could back down. Even if that straight-laced, honest, wholeheartedly devoted Natsune-san became an Oni.
翔ちゃん
Even if that memory buried deep within me of Natsune-san wearing a blood-soaked protector in her last moments was true.
翔ちゃんごめんね
The reason Natsune-san became an Oni, an undead person, was surely because of me.
翔ちゃん守れなくてごめんね
It's because she had been trying to protect me. That's why.
私は引かない夏姉さんをなっちゃんを二度と私の目の前で死なせるものか
That's right. As if I'd lose her a second time. The determination in my eyes was surely what had captured the Oni's attention.
お主剣気の知り合いだったか肉親よ家族よ夏姉さんは私の大切な人よ
もしかして
I heard a sharp intake of breath from behind me.
もしかしてあなた
Natsune-san realized it was me.
翔ちゃん生きていたの
Yes, I am! Not Natsu-san, but me.
まったく面倒なことだ
Natsune-san and I didn't have time to exchange words of reunion as we had to confront the danger in front of us.
この程度では多勢に無勢とは言わぬがな
She was equal to Natsune-san. No, the Sekiganki had been superior in fighting, so help from me was equivalent to nothing. The Sekiganki looked nothing but amused as she laughed, causing a fang to peek out.
どうせなら一騎打ちと参ろうではないか。もう一人いる。
Huh? If it was going to be a 1-1 fight, that meant someone else was here. Well, who? I squinted at the dark south forest surrounding
どこから？
us.
ここからだ。
Oh. You're familiar? She lifted the longsword in her hand up high. The moonlight glittered off the keen blade.
お庭か！
She yelled in a sharp voice. That instant, I thought the moonlight had been suddenly covered in shadow, but at some point, a large human shadow appeared in front of us. Yes, it was familiar to the image of that time when Miwa had smashed a Moryu with a backspin.
Oni!
And Oni was born. Because she had sparred with Natsume-san at first, I'd forgotten. The Sekiganke wasn't a swordsman. She was a one-eyed, white-haired Omiyuji, a wielder of Oni. My line of sight wasn't enough, and I had to crane my neck up to look at the Oni that Sekiganke had summoned. It was so huge, and so frightening. The terrifying aura coming from that overwhelming black mass rooted my body in place. Though my heart couldn't beat any faster than what it was doing now, I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't move my feet.
お庭か。ひねりつぶせ。
A huge arm swung around. I'd be crushed before I could perform any action at all. However, before that arm smashed into me, Kaya saved me. Yup, called it. Natsume-san grabbed a hold of my arm and pulled me from under the path of the Oni's limb. In front of my eyes, a large, hot mass smashed down. The fist of the Oni drilled into the ground, causing the sow trees to shake.
巨体のくせに素早い。なんとも厄介な鬼だが。不運だったな。たとえどんな強大な鬼である。この剣の前に立ちふさがるには不足。抜いたのか。
A frightening presence that far surpassed that of the Oni emanated from what was in Natsume-san's hand. The ominous aura rolling off it really could be called miasma. It was an overwhelming, violent power. And then Natsume-san took that power which had a physical form and
なんとやらの泣きどころはここだ。
thrust it through the Oni's leg. The Oni's howl reverberated through the forest.
どれ、よくもやったな。
Whether it was because she felt a joint pain or because her precious child was hurt, I saw an opening past the Senki-ganki. Through that opening, the terrible thing Natsume-san held was frightening enough to make my outstretched hand tremble, but even then I grabbed hold of Natsume-san's hand.
夏姉さん、浦島行くんでしょ。ええ。じゃ、こっち、早く。
I pulled on Natsume-san's hand and started running towards the Oni stepping stones. If we're gonna run to Migiwa, though, I wonder if that white-haired, one-eyed Omiyuji, a wielder of Oni, had summoned these things. As we ran through the south forest, Moryu gathered around to attack us.
しつこい。
Against a sword that could take down that huge Oni, like paper on fire, the Moryu turned to dust even before they got near. But like insects gathering around a lit torch, their numbers seemed to know no bounds. Perhaps she knew they weren't much for Natsume-san, so they were only being used to slow us down. If that were the case, then if we dawdled, the Sekiganke would once again. We had gotten by with a surprise attack earlier, but if the Sekiganke and that huge Oni attacked us in earnest, if Natsune-san were by herself, she would be able to be more agile and would be able to run faster, but I didn't want to let go of her hand, and Natsune-san was also tightly gripping mine.
あまり剣でこいつらを切ると剣の力に惹かれてきたのかもしれないけど元気と長
She probably noticed the terrible aura of the sword and the sound of us rushing across the rocks in no attempt to hide. Migawa had already thrown away her fishing pole and was gripping her vermilion pole.
長止まれ翔ちゃん止まると後ろから
Looking behind my shoulder, I saw a red and white shadow leaping over the rocks as nimbly as a monkey. That person who held a long sword that was mismatched for her height was a Sekiganke. If we stopped, she'd catch up to us. The opponent was the Sekiganke, so if we had the time to explain, we'd get Migawa to team up with us and could do something. But right now, we couldn't stop.
これは剣
I don't think she'd even want to listen right now that we're here with swords, so I think we should just run. Migawa, who was standing in front of us, suddenly lost a hold of her posture. It wasn't that she had just slipped or something. Her movement had looked somehow unnatural. As if she were suddenly hit with a wave of dizziness. Her limbs got entangled and she fell into the ocean. The miasma.
右輪が剣の木に当てられたのね翔ちゃんこのまま駆け抜けるわよ
As I was about to cross over the rocks where Migawa had just been standing. Proceed. Let's proceed.
分かってる
I was worried about Migawa, but we, ourselves, were in danger. I wondered if Migawa were okay. Huh? The Sekiganke stopped along the shore and didn't chase after us. Why?
夏姉さんとりあえず浦島までもう潮が満ち始めるから止まってはいられないわ
We climbed up the rocks. We climbed down the rocks. One by one, they didn't require much effort, but it was a different story if you continually went over one past the other. And we were also pressured by the time limit of the rising tide, making things even more difficult.
頑張って翔ちゃん浦島はもうすぐよ分かってる島に着いたらしばらく休めるわ私たちでギリギリだから次の引き潮まであの人たちは追ってこれない
Whether or not the sun was drawing the ocean back, the eastern sky was lighting up, and the stepping stones were sinking. For the last few meters, the stepping stones were only a few centimeters above water as we jumped across to proceed ahead.
着いたなんとか間に合ったわね
Natsune-san and I arrived on the shores of Urashima.
夏姉さん翔ちゃん本当に翔ちゃんなのね一緒だ
These feelings, this scent, it made me remember.
変わらない間違いなく夏姉さんだ翔ちゃんの方はすっかり大きくなって
Held within the embrace of arms that gently rubbed my back, I also returned the hug. The air that pressured my chest made my throat vibrate, generating a voice. There were no gaps. The distance between us was zero. Natsune-san's sigh, even closer to her than me, tickled. Under the morning light, there was only a single solitary stretched out shadow created by the two of us. Even then, Natsune-san's embrace didn't slacken. She continued to squeeze harder, bringing the two of us even closer together.
ちょっと、夏姉さん、力強すぎない？夏姉さん、翔ちゃん、慣れて。
I think we should get away.
翔ちゃん、私から離れて。
Her almost painful embrace slackened. However, strength still remained in Natsune-san's arms as they were twitching slightly. She was using her strength to prevent herself from strongly embracing me.
どうして？私は鬼だから。翔ちゃんが危ないから。翔ちゃんの温かさと柔らかさを感じたからだが、ね、言うことを聞かなくなりそうなの。その温かい血を、その柔らかい肌に牙を突き立ててすすれって求めてくるのよ。
Well, that certainly makes things complicated, doesn't it?
だからこれが収まるまで。
Well, nah.
いいよ、大丈夫。翔ちゃん、死なないぐらいの量だったら私から吸っても構わないから。でも痛いだろうし、その大丈夫だから。
This time I was the one who hugged Natsune-san tightly.
大丈夫だから。私の血吸っていいから。翔ちゃん、いいのね。うん、夏姉さんなら。
Like what happens when anticipating a kiss, I closed my eyes, lifted up my jaw, and waited for the moment. Natsune-san stepped away from me. The salty breeze robbed my skin of any remaining warmth, causing me to become a little uneasy. Thinking that Natsune-san herself might have been gone with the wind, I started to open my eyes up to check. Only my sense of sight was sealed, increasing my sense of touch. Before I opened my eyes, I felt a warm presence at my back. As usual, Natsune-san had clumsy hands as she pushed back my blouse. Her hot, moist sigh tickled my neck. She put her lips against my neck, and her hard teeth pressed against my skin. Then there was pain. The force of Natsune-san's mouth relaxed, and she took a breath. I also did the same thing, since I'd been holding my breath, causing my body to stiffen up. A portion of myself slid down Natsune-san's throat. I felt something full of darkness. I wondered if this was Natsune-san's demon.
何？翔ちゃん。
なんでもない。なんでもないけど。
No matter what the form, Natsune-san was here right now.
離れない。夏姉さん、もう離れないよ。翔ちゃん。ちょっと
眠くなってきた。夏姉さんがいるの夢じゃないよね。
My eyelids and my consciousness sank.
夏姉さん、何？
So, I think I'm gonna go ahead and cut things off here. I think this is a decent enough point to stop as any, and I also got business I have to attend to after this, so yeah. So we're here at the island now, together, and Kaya definitely knows for sure that, well, I'm alive. I mean, I'm right here with her, so I really can't help but wonder, how much more differently is this story gonna play out compared to all the previous routes? I'm definitely curious to see. But yeah, we can save that for next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Aoi Shiro. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.